Welcome to the All Things Titans YouTube channel. I am your host, Jonathan Miller. I am so excited to start this channel here on YouTube. I've been doing this content on TikTok for a little while now, and I've been making content for a really long time, and I've been a Titans fan even longer than that. But for whatever reason, I've never sat down to say, hey, this is the type of content that I want to make and create for the world. I always thought that it was too niche. There weren't as many Titans fans or weren't enough Titans fans to enjoy this type of content. But what I found out in just diving into football related content is that a lot of people love football, and even fans of football that aren't necessarily a fan of the Titans still enjoy this type of deep analytical thought. I'm one of those people. And then when I realized I could do that I should start an account and start a channel and start creating that type of content, it's got me so excited. So hello again, my name is Jonathan Miller. My background is primarily in the esports and gaming industry. That's kind of where I started creating content, doing streaming and things like that. But I've been a Titans fan for a very long time. Ever since my family moved to Tennessee, I was, I think, like 6 or 7 years old when the Titans were in the Super Bowl. And when I watched that Super Bowl, I found my love for football and I found my love for the Tennessee Titans. Even though I'm a huge Titans fan, I am a big fan of football as a whole. I love watching, all teams play. I'm a big fan. I love college football as well. Don't follow it quite as closely as the professional side, but have just been a huge fan of the game. I love the analytics side of the game. I love the science behind football. I love the strategy and the nerdiness of it as well. I'm a really big fan of all of that. And I've been following the game for a long time that I think I can speak to it in a way that will resonate with other people. So I'm hoping that does that here today for you. So to kick off this channel officially, today we're going to be covering free agency as a topic. And the reason why we're going to do that is because we're less than 24 hours away from free agency officially kicking off for the 2024-2025 season. If you're watching this, you're probably watching it the day of, or maybe even after free agency has started. So what I would like to do today is put together 5 priority action items, if you will, for the Tennessee Titans and what I would do if I were Ran Carthon and the Tennessee Titans front office team. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in, and let me preface this by saying there are 5 things, but there are multiple topics within those 5 things. For example, number 1 is going to be talking about us re-signing certain players. Now, I don't want to go over in depth exactly every single player that should be re-signed. There's a lot of nuance to the onesie, twosie deals that really fill out the roster. There's going to be a handful of players that'll sign 1 year, $2 million deals that will play critical depth roles. Those are kind of hard to predict, especially when you have a franchise that has a brand new head coach, new scheme, new everything, really gutted quite a bit. But what I'm going to do is highlight some of the big picture re-signings that I think the Titans should target at the start of free agency. To kick things off, we're going to start by re-signing one of my favorite players on the team, led the team in sacks last year with 12, and has been a production machine for the Titans defense for the past couple of years, and that is defensive lineman Denico Autry. Has been insanely versatile, has been insanely productive, even in times where he was missing time due to tiny injuries here and there. Last year stayed mostly healthy, was a shining spot of the defense, and was absolutely key to the production that the defense did have, even amongst a not so great year. Denico, you got to bring him back. I think 1 year deal probably makes the most sense. Close to the $10 million range is something that I think he's earned and deserves. If you can get him for 2 years back, I think that'd be great too, but he's definitely on the tail end of his career. We'll see how long he maybe intends to stay or how long he intends to play. Would like to see him back. Kind of moving on, staying on the defensive side of the ball, we have linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair, who came in as kind of like a prove-it deal with Ran Carthon last season and absolutely proved he was worth every dime that they spent on him. 160 plus tackles, broke the single season record for tackles, beating Stephen Tulloch, I believe, in his first year. Crazy efficient sideline to sideline linebacker. Was okay in coverage, but was phenomenal getting after the running back, getting into the backfield, plugging those gaps. Was very good. And more importantly, something that doesn't need to be understated, was how good Azeez was as a leader. Before the trade deadline, Kevin Byard, which is one of the primary leaders of the defense for a long time, was traded away to the Eagles. Jeffrey Simmons goes down about halfway through or early on in the season, so he's not out there playing So this looked like the very, very new defense led by Azeez Al-Shaair, and he really did step up and become that captain of the defense towards the end of the year and played very, very well. So would love to see Azeez back. Would be fine with like a 3-year, $30 million. Maybe it's, 24, 25 million in guarantees. Whatever you come up with, he's earned it in my opinion. I think he should be in the $7 to $8 million AAV range. So would love to have Azeez back. Staying on the defense and finishing that out, we have Sean Murphy-Bunting, which amongst Titans fans has not been the most popular, but I will say that regardless of the PFF stats, regardless of the analytics, Sean was again a shining bright spot of the defense more times than he wasn't. Obviously, the one knock on his game was he had a very aggressive play style, and that got him caught by one too many flags over the course of the season, and he got beat in some pretty important spots against some really good receivers. So naturally, you probably don't want Sean to be your cornerback one. I think he played well enough in his first year on the outside. By the way, he's primarily a nickel guy, so seeing him play on the outside in Tennessee is what kind of attracted him to the defense to come and play here. But I think he has earned a second contract. Now, what that looks like exactly, who knows? Maybe it's like a 2-year, $14 million deal. Somewhere in the $6, $7, $8 million AAV range makes sense for Sean. But I think you bring him back because there's not that outside guy on the team right now. There's a lot of question marks surrounding the cornerback room. So getting some continuity from the defense, some guys that played pretty good back on the defense is important. So I would like to have SMB back. Then, of course, over to special teams, Nick Folk. Not much to talk about with Nick Folk, mostly because there was a report that came out recently that said, hey, he wants to test free agency, wants to see what's out there for him. That's totally fair. Not necessarily assuming he's a Mike Vrabel guy. He got traded. We traded a 7th-round pick for him last offseason. And he just had a really good year. So I could see him maybe wanting to chase a ring or something like that. Probably sees the Titans as not a top contender next year, which I don't think anybody does believe that. So don't necessarily blame him. But maybe if he doesn't get a very worthwhile opportunity, maybe he comes back. I would like to have him back. Lastly, for my primary re-signings, we have a guy on offense, Chris Moore, who, again, not crazy stats. However, if you just boil it down to big moments and how the player played, I think it's very clear to see that Chris Moore was absolutely clutch for the Titans in a lot of big moments. Did very well downfield, created space, went up and got some contested balls that were probably shouldn't have gone his way that did. Was very, very reliable, stretched the field well, and as like a wide receiver 4 type, he makes a ton of sense in my opinion. I would love to have him back. Maybe it's a 1-year, $3-4 million deal, something along those lines. If he doesn't get a better opportunity elsewhere, I think he would be happy to come back. Would love to have him back. All right, so that's number 1. So we have 4 more areas of priority. These will all be free agents that are currently available, have not been tagged, do not necessarily have any clear favorite landing spots, some rumors surrounding them, but are currently, as I'm talking to you now, available. So let's see if the Titans can make it happen. For number 1, my top free agency priority signing is wide receiver Calvin Ridley. In my opinion, easily the top available talent currently as it stands after the franchise tags and signings of Mike Evans and Michael Pittman. There's not a whole lot left in the market. A little bit better than last year's class of free agent receivers, but nonetheless, Calvin Ridley, a fantastic player, had that year that he got suspended, which was, a bummer for him. But, who knows? Maybe that means that his body's a little more fresh than a normal 29-year-old, soon-to-be 30-year-old body is. Would love to have him, pretty productive. My favorite thing about Calvin Ridley is just how good of a route runner he is. One of the best in the league, I would argue. Very, very good. Good length. Great spacing in your intermediate routes and down the field routes. Overall, has pretty good hands and has done a pretty good job of being the top guy and showing that he has wide receiver 1 potential. The one knock on his game that I think a lot of Falcons and Jaguars fans would agree on is that he's had his inconsistency around drops. Now, whether those were quarterback's fault or his fault, those are 50-50 at times. For the most part, probably more drops, meaningful drops than he probably should have had last season. But regardless, 1,000-yard season, I think it was 8 touchdowns overall. Very productive member of the offense and would be a very, very reliable wide receiver 2 in the offense with potential to be the guy after DeAndre is most likely leaving after next season. I think that you look at him as, a top target. 4 years, $80 million is what I would offer him and be in the market of. I think he's going to be in the $20 million AAV range. He's going to be highly sought after. There's a handful of teams that are wide receiver needy, And even though we have a very rich wide receiver draft class, getting a guy like him, you know, in his prime, if you will, is a really good opportunity. So I would love to go after him. Now, I have a 1B and a 1C wide receiver signing if Calvin Ridley doesn't work out. Let's say a team like the Patriots decide they're going to drop a bag on him, put him in the $24 million range AAV or something, and Rand Carthon and team just say, look, it's not worth it. Like we can just get other guys. So then they pivot. The other guy I would look at for my second option would be Marquise Hollywood Brown, wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Hollywood in his last year at Baltimore was absolutely dominant. 1,000+ yards. I think he had 145 targets on 91 catches. Don't remember the touchdowns that he had in that year, but was absolutely dominant in Baltimore in his last season. So proved that he probably should have been the guy. But regardless, he doesn't go back and re-sign with Baltimore. He goes on to Arizona, where he had 2 okay years. I think he was dealing with some injuries the first year in Arizona, and then this past season has had a pretty okay season. 51 catches, 574 yards, 4 touchdowns. However, it was on 91 targets. So the one knock that I have on Hollywood is that the past 2 years, he's had a really high number of targets, not necessarily matching with those receptions. So, you know, whether that falls under the bucket of, hey, he's dropping more passes than he should, or is it just the inconsistent quarterback play in Arizona that really caused some of the miscommunication or, you know, just missed throws in general? I'll let you be the judge. But regardless, the talent is very clearly there for Hollywood and would be an immediate impact starter for the Tennessee Titans, especially paired up with DeAndre Hopkins, who he played a year with or had some time playing with in Arizona. So there could be some synergy there that D-Hop might love to have. I would assume that they'll probably reach out to D-Hop if they're doing any work on Hollywood and saying like, hey, would you like to have this guy paired with you? And so we'll see. Time will tell on Hollywood. Hollywood, I think, is in the 4-year, $70 million range, probably 17.5 million AAV. Now that's a little bit higher than Spotrac has him estimated. I think that it's going to be, the wide receiver market is going to be very competitive. Thus, I think we're going to see a couple $1 million more on those top contracts for those top guys like Calvin Ridley, Marquise Brown, and some of these other guys are going to fetch a couple more million a year, I think, than what they're probably projected or estimated to. Now, wide receiver 1C is there, and is a guy that I really like. He gets a lot of hate for reasons I don't really understand, and that's Gabriel Davis. So Gabe Davis, wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills, is hitting the market, and he's going to be a little bit cheaper than the 2 guys that I previously mentioned. Granted, very different game Gabe Davis has than these other 2 guys, but he's a big body X receiver, contested catch freak, does a really good job of stretching the field. Is just a really reliable guy when you need him. Now, I think part of Gabe's story is, you know, he's kind of battled with like little, you know, 1Z, 2Z injuries here and there and hasn't had, you know, a ton of production. But what I will say is that this is a high-powered Buffalo offense with Stephon Diggs, who's garnering 13, 14 targets a game. You have very talented tight ends for the past couple of seasons that are also taking a lot of the target share. So I think if Gabe Davis was in a offense similar to Buffalo in that they're passing and throwing the ball a lot, but maybe he's seeing more targets, I think Gabe Davis could be one of the best wide receiver 2s in the league. I really do. The game that he had a couple years ago against the Chiefs in that crazy playoff game, I don't remember if it was divisional, if it was the conference title game, but it was huge. I mean, he was every bit the reason why they were absolutely just, you know, staying in it. Pound for pound, touchdown for touchdown. It's an incredible game, and Gabe Davis was a big part of that. So I would say that he's probably in the $13.5 million range. Spotrac has him estimated there. I think I would be interested in him at around like 3 years, 41 million, which is again around 13.6 million AAV. And we'll see. If the other 2 guys are gone, I would be happy to add Gabe Davis to the team. I think that he adds an element to the team that we kind of have already, but D-Hop, Treylon Burks, very different players than Gabe Davis, and I think adding that type of talent is just good. So I would be on board with adding Gabriel Davis if the other 2 guys were unavailable. Number 3, hear me out. We're going to go to the left tackle position, and some of you are going to freak when I say this name. Now, Titans Twitter has been very back and forth on this player. I, for one, am really high on the potential here, but I understand the hesitation, and that player is Mekhi Becton. Jets fans are laughing on the other side of this screen right now, but hold on. Give me a second to explain myself. Granted, I don't have any stats to stand on that will back the claim that I think that Mekhi Becton would be a good signing for the Titans. But here's my rationale. 2 reasons. It's a good fit for both sides. The Titans get a really high potential left tackle who is potentially going to be, whether it's at left or right tackle, a starting franchise tackle for you for 10 more years. And they get him for really cheap. I think they're probably going to be in the $5 to $6 million a year range, with maybe some incentives that could get him to 8 or 9. So I think that he would be very affordable. But in addition to that, I think that for Mekhi Becton, it's a big fit and a benefit to maybe come to Tennessee, because you get a chance to be the guy again. But not only do you get an opportunity, but you also get a chance to pair with arguably the best offensive line coach in the NFL today, arguably one of the best to ever do it, in Bill Callahan, Brian Callahan's dad. I would think that that fit could make a ton of sense for both sides. I think that it would also mean that the Titans could add another tackle in free agency in addition to Mekhi Becton, that would give them some necessary depth and would kind of give them some developmental pieces without having to rely solely on the draft. Mekhi Becton, I have him at 2 years, $10 million with $5 million guaranteed, which would give him a large incentive to make up that money and probably get paid better than he would at some other places, to probably be a bona fide backup. This would be a developmental opportunity, and it would be super affordable for the Titans, so why not take the flyer? Now, 3B is also a left tackle, so we're going to sign another one. This guy, very decorated, very successful career, is going into year 14, I believe, and is now hitting the free agency market for reasons that I think are surrounding his durability and less of his skill set, and that is left tackle Tyron Smith. Tyron Smith should have a good amount of interest from throughout the league. Like, there should be several teams who would be interested in his services, but I think the Titans make the most sense here. I would like to bring Tyron Smith on a 1 year, maybe $9.5 million, maybe $10 million. Spotrac has him estimated much lower, I think around $6.5 or $7 million AAV, but I think that given the need at left tackle and the scarcity of the position for free agency, there's going to be a couple of teams who would be willing to pay a little bit more. And again, salary cap rising to an insane level this year, Amazon striking new deals, being more prominent in the NFL community, is only means that there's going to be more and more money that we're going to see there. So I think that NFL agents are going to be able to see this, predict this, and say, hey, we need to try to shoot for a higher dollar amount. So Tyron Smith would be a great fit. I think he's the stopgap at left tackle for the year. It gives the Titans power position at the 7th overall pick, which draft strategy very much in play here in the start of free agency. So you sign Tyron Smith for 1 year. You have Mekhi Becton, who is a project who can either plug in if Tyron Smith gets hurt, which he's known to do that, or you're able to develop him to the point where maybe you fit him in at right tackle, and then you have those two guys, and maybe you draft a guy that you develop at left. You have options, and that's what the Titans need here. They need depth, they need options, they need to equip Bill Callahan with as many tools and with as many weapons, so that way he can craft the best offensive line for the team, and I think that would certainly help at left tackle. So you're not putting all your eggs in a Mekhi Becton, or putting all of your eggs into a Tyron Smith who could potentially get injured. But regardless, Tyron Smith played very, very well this past season, despite some of the obstacles he's had recently in his career. And I think he would be a great fit and a great stopgap for the Titans at left tackle, who has been bleeding at that position for a couple years now. Number 4 is one of my favorite players from 2023. He had an insane year with 7 interceptions and has a direct tie to new defensive coordinator Denard Wilson, and that is safety Geno Stone. Geno, 7 interceptions in 2023, had a really, really productive year on that Ravens defense, was right where he needed to be when the ball was there, came up with some insane plays for his team. So overall, I don't think that Geno Stone has fully developed his game, not even close. This guy's a 7th round draft pick, played like 10 snaps or something like that in his first season. 2022 had, again, not very many snaps, had like an okay year. I think he had 1 interception. And then in 2023, this past year, had an absolutely massive year with 7 turnovers, which is just absolutely otherworldly and would be a huge, huge addition. Now, I'm not saying you sign him saying this guy's going to be intercepting 7 passes a year, but I think that what he showed in 2023 is an immense step in his career, and you would pair him with the coach that helped him get there from a developmental standpoint. So this connection makes so much sense. Like, You know, CJ Gardner-Johnson would be a great fit in Tennessee, also has the Denard Wilson connection. That could easily be a guy that they maybe go with. Hell, they could even go with both. But I think what most likely happens is the Titans look at Geno Smith and say, this is a young player. You can get him for an affordable price because the safety position is just getting devalued in the NFL, and he would be a great fit. So I think that you go with Geno Stone. I like Geno for 3 years, $27 million, which bumps him up to $9 million AAV, which is, again, a little bit higher than where Spotrac has him. I think you do that because you're paying for not only the fact that he's a young developing player, but he just had an insane year. It's just a good situation. So I think to be competitive, Geno Stone will be very highly sought after by multiple teams. And if the Titans want to be in contention for him and want to show that they value him, then they'll have to pony up the money. And I think it would be well worth it. My fifth and final priority move in free agency for the Tennessee Titans is signing another defensive back, probably not one that you would expect. This is going to be cornerback Stephon Gilmore. Gilly Lock going into year 12 is looking like he's on the back end of his career, is not quite the same guy that he was when he was, you know, MVP defensive player of the year caliber player. But what I will say is that he has been pretty productive in the past couple of seasons. Obviously, he had to stop in Indianapolis and then most recently here in Dallas. I think there's a ton of potential here, and it makes a ton of sense for the Titans. And here's my reason why. We elected to re-sign Sean Murphy-Bunting, so he's going to play one of those outside roles. You have Roger McCreary, who's going to play in the nickel, and that's his best position. He's been great there. And then you bring in Stephon Gilmore to play cornerback one, take your top priority matchups, which is something he's done a fantastic job of his entire career. But he's played well. He had 3 turnovers last season with Dallas, 2 of those being interceptions. He was targeted 91 times, only allowed 50 catches, had 62 solo tackles, so he's great in space. He always has been. So I think that this would be a good stopgap at corner. So again, opportunities at left tackle, create a stopgap, bring in an all-pro guy, both of these guys being Dallas Cowboys, ironically. But you bring in a left tackle that's a stopgap guy who's going to bring production at that position and stop the bleeding. Then you do the same at corner, but both opportunities give you the flexibility to draft young talent that you can bring in to succeed them. And so I think what this plan does for the Tennessee Titans is this brings depth and opens up the realm of possibility for the team. Because right now, Tennessee, prior to free agency, going into the draft, it's very obvious what they have to do at 7. It's very obvious what they have to do at pick 38. And right now, I think the best thing for the Titans is to add talent in areas that are immediate needs, and then give themselves the flexibility to maybe trade down at 7. Add some more picks in the 2nd or 3rd round. That would be crucial in a draft that is very, very deep. That's what I got, guys. That's my top 5 priorities. I think the Titans are going to be in play for a lot of these players. Early murmurs and rumors has been that they've been in conversations a lot, and they said they were going to be active. So we'll see. The start of free agency is going to be really exciting. I personally can't wait. Hopefully we're looking at some of these opportunities for the Titans to get better. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's all any team is trying to do. That's going to do it for me, guys. I really, really appreciate you watching this. If you took the time, watch this whole thing. To my Titans fans, I love you guys. Thank you guys for the support. I'll continue to try to support you. And let's get active in the community. I want to hear from you guys. There's so many fans that I haven't gotten a chance to talk to yet. And would love that opportunity. So please drop me a comment. Let me know what you guys think of my priority moves today. Let me know what you maybe would have done. If you hated it, if you loved it, just talk to me. I want to get to know you guys. I do have a TikTok account. It's All Things Titans. It's the same thing. And I'm creating just shorter form content there in comparison to where you'll get like the long-winded explanation type of stuff here. If you have a TikTok account, I would appreciate you going and following me there. And then on Twitter, I'm actually at esportsvalen. So feel free to follow me on Twitter. That's where I'm the most active and communicate the most with the fan base and kind of talk about Titans related content there too. And then of course, right here, please drop me a like, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, all that fun stuff. I really appreciate it. It helps the channel grow naturally. And at the end of the day, I don't have any goals for this channel. If I have 10 subscribers or 10,000, you know, down the road, it's going to be all the same to me. I just love making this content. I love my team. I love talking football. It's my passion, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it. So thank you so much. You guys have a nice day, and I'll see you again next time.